Hello everyone out there in MP3 land. This is Rabbi Dov Chastain coming to you from Portland, Oregon, a city that Rav Moshe Feinstein Zatzal described as Masa D'Yasfa al Nahar Willamette Yal Nahar Columbia, the beautiful city that sits on the Willamette and Columbia rivers. Today we are going to be discussing the topic of Shemitas Kesafim, monetary Shemittah or loan amnesty. And this is the first of many classes that we are going to have online, both as MP3s and with all of the source material on OregonKosher.org. Our subject matter tonight is a mitzvah that comes out of the sixth aliyah of my bar mitzvah parsha, Parshas Re'eh. The sixth aliyah focuses on tzedakah and meiser, tithes, which are very important, but also contains an extremely relevant body of halacha for us who are coming to the end of the Shemittah year, 5775, that being the mitzvah of Shemitas Kesafim, monetary Shemittah or loan amnesty. And everyone that's listening to this MP3 is fortunate because this is the second time that I'm giving this class, so I've already practiced it and you are getting the new and improved version. Shemittah is translated as the sabbatical year and comes from the word shamot, meaning to release. Just as we have a 7-day week with the seventh day being a day of rest, so too the Torah prescribes a 7-year agricultural cycle, with the 7th year being a year of rest for the land and the Holy Land of Israel, during which the land is not worked and the produce of the land is sanctified. Most of us are very familiar with this form of agricultural Shemitah. Additionally, Parshas Re'eh teaches us that the Shemitah year waives all outstanding debts between Jewish debtors and creditors, specifically Jewish debtors and creditors, because if one owes money to a non-Jew or a non-Jew owes money to them, the loan is not affected by Shemitah. It's important to mention from the outset that most halachic authorities hold that nowadays the laws of Shemitah are rabbinic in nature. The laws of agricultural Shemitah begin on Rosh Hashanah of the 7th year, with some exceptions, and the cancellation of debts, i.e. monetary Shemitah, occurs at the sunset on Erev Rosh Hashanah of the 8th year. That's this coming Rosh Hashanah, which makes this class so relevant. For those of you who are following along on the handout online, we are going to be in section 1, Biblical Sources for the Mitzvah. We are starting in Parshas Re'eh, Deuteronomy 15, 1 through 3. The Torah tells us, Miketz Sheva Shonim Ta'aseh Shemitah. At the end of 7 years, you will make a Shemitah release. Note specifically the pasuk says at the end of 7 years, which is going to be applicable later. The psukim continue, V'zeh dvar hashmita, this is the manner of the release, Shamot kol baal mashe yado, to release the hand of every creditor, Asher yashed re'ehu, from what he lent his friend, Lo yigos es re'ehu v'yesachiv, he shall not pressure his friend or his brother, Ki kara shmita la'Hashem, because the time of release for the Lord has arrived. The next pasuk, pasuk Gimel, verse 3, Esan achriti gos, the foreigner you can pressure to pay you back, but what you have by your brother, the Jew, tashmet yodecha, you have to release your hand. On our handout sheet, the second sources are just a few psukim later, Deuteronomy 15, 7 through 10. Actually, I'm going to look at specifically 9 through 10. Hishamer lecha, beware, penye devarim levavcha b'liyal lemor, lest there be in your heart an unfaithful thought, saying, Karva shnas hasheva, shnas hashmita. The 7th year, the Shemitah year, is approaching. V'ra eincha b'achicha ha'evyon, v'lo sitein lo, v'kara elecha el Hashem, v'haya b'cha chet. And you will begrudge your needy brother and not give him, and he will cry out to Hashem against you, and it will be a sin to you. Nason titein lo, next pasuk. Nason titein lo, rather you should surely give him. V'lo ye'er levavcha v'sidcha lo, and your heart shall not be grieved when you give to him. Ki biglal hadavar hazeh, because it's for this very thing. Yivarecha Hashem Elokecha, that Hashem your God bless you. V'chol ma'asecha, v'chol mishlach yadecha, in all of your work and in all of your endeavors. So the Torah is warning that a person should not think to himself, when the Shemitah year approaches, if I lend out my money, I'm going to lose it. And then the person goes on to decide not to lend out to his needy brother. That would be in itself an avera, a transgression. In section 3 on our handout, we have the 3 Torah-based mitzvos of monetary Shemitah based on Sefer Dinei Shvius HaShalem. This is a recap of what we just saw in those psukim, the Torah-based mitzvos of monetary Shemitah. A, there's a positive mitzvah for a person to release loans that are owed to him or her. B, there's a prohibition against demanding the repayment of a loan after Shemitah. And C, there's a prohibition to refrain from lending money to one's friend because the Shemitah year is approaching and one fears losing their money. One should be generous and one should lend. So these are the Torah-based mitzvahs of monetary Shemitah. We're going to move on now to section 2 and speak about what the rationale is for monetary Shemitah. This is coming out of the Sefer HaChinuch, Mitzvah 477, Reasoning Behind the Law. This is section 2, source 1. Ukvar kasavti b'mishpatim, I already wrote in Parshas Mishpatim, the mitzvah Shmitas Karkos, about agricultural Shemitah, mashi yadati b'shoresh hamitzvah, what I believe to be the source of this mitzvah. U'shmitas K'safim, and monetary Shemitah, gam kein achar oso atam nimshach, is also based on that same reasoning. L'lamed nashenu v'midos ma'ulos, midos hanadivos v'ayin tova, that we should inculcate within ourselves lofty character traits, generosity, and magnanimity. That we should implant in our hearts a great trust in Hashem, blessed be He. Then our spirit will become worthy and ready to receive goodness from the Master of all, embodying a blessing and compassion. V'gam nimsa mizeh geder chazak u'mechitza shel barzel l'srachik ma'od min hagezel u'min hachemda v'chol asher l'reinu. So through this, we will also build a strong fence and a wall of iron to keep well away from the sin of theft and coveting our neighbor's possession. Kinasa kal v'chomer b'nashosenu. We are going to make a kal v'chomer about ourselves. We will have an internal argument that will enter our minds. Lay more to say, afilu desi mamoni, even if I actually lent him my money, the Yegia Shnasa Shmita, and the Shemitah year arrived, Amra Torah, the Torah says, lahashmit v'yada milva, that I have to release this loan. Shlo ligzol v'shlo lachmod mishalo lo kol shekain. So to not steal from this person and to not covet his items, shouldn't that be all the more so? It does not make sense that even if I would lend to him and I would have to give up my money, so it won't enter my mind, God forbid, that I should ever steal for him. It'll put in your mind to refrain from theft and coveting to the utmost degree. So just to recap, the Sefer HaChinuch tells us that keeping the laws of monetary Shemitah will build within us good character traits. Trust in Hashem will bring us a bracha from Hashem, and will build a strong fence against stealing and coveting, because it would be illogical to steal and covet from a person if I can't even take back my own money when I lend it to him. We are now going to move on to section 3, Shemitah nowadays. First source here is the Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud, in Gittin 36a through b. Is modern Shemitah Torah-based or rabbinic? The Tanya, we learned in a Braisa, Rebbe Omer Rebbe says, in Devarim Tesava of Beis, the Zed Dvar HaShemitah Shamot. This is the matter of the release. Sounds repetitive. B'shtei Shemitos HaKasav Medaber. That's because the Torah is telling you about two different types of Shemitah. Achas Shemitas Karka, one agricultural Shemitah, v'achas Shemitas Ksafim, and one monetary Shemitah. I want to point out that most opinions, most commentators say that Shemitas Karka, the agricultural Shemitah we're talking about here, is actually the Yovel year, the Jubilee year. Bizman she'ata meshamet karka, so at a time when we do the Jubilee year, ata meshamet ksafim, you would also have monetary Shemitah in play. Bizman she'ata meshamet karka, but when we don't have the Jubilee year in play, iata meshamet ksafim, you also would not have monetary Shemitah in play. We do not have the Yovel today. So according to this, there would be no Torah-based Shemitah today for Shemitas Ksafim. So then what happened? Tiknu Rabbanan d'tishamet zecher l'shvius. The Rabbanan Chazal, our sages of blessed memory, established today's Shemitah to commemorate the laws of Shemitah. We're going to speak this out at length, but first I want to do two more sources so we can track this further. Section 3, source number 2, Talmud Bavli, Babylonian Talmud, Erchin 32b. Why doesn't Yovel apply? We just said it doesn't apply. Why doesn't it apply? Tanya, we learned in a Braisa, Mishegalu Shevet Ruvain v'Shevet Gad v'Chatzi Shevet Menashe. Once the tribes of Reuven and Gad and half of Shevet Menashe were exiled, Bitlu Yovlos, we nullified the Yovel year. Shenamar, as it says in a pasuk in Vayikra Chaf Hey Yud, Ukrasem Dror Ba'aretz L'chol Yosheveha. You should proclaim freedom in the land for all of its inhabitants. L'chol Yosheveha. B'zman shekol Yosheveha aleh. Only in a time when all of its inhabitants, meaning all the Jewish people, are on the land. And Klal Yisrael Shurim B'ad Masam, when we're living on the land and in control of the land. V'lo b'zman shegalu miksasan, not when some of the Jewish people are still in exile. Source 3, Shulchan Aruch, Choshen Mishpat 67:1, Shemittah in our times. Ein Shemitas Ksafim Noheges Min HaTorah Ela B'zman Shayovel Noeg. Monetary Shemitah only applies on a Torah level at a time when we can observe the Yovel. Midivrei Soferim, but on a rabbinic level, Shetehei Shemitas Ksafim Noheges B'zman Hazeh. On a rabbinic level, monetary Shemitah applies today in all places, B'chol Makom, in all places, which means Israel and Chutz La'aretz outside the land of Israel. So it's applicable here as well. Agricultural Shemitah is more applicable in the land of Israel, although when Shemitah produce makes its way over to the United States of America, then we have to deal with some of those halachos as well. But Shemitas Ksafim is always applicable over here in the good old US of A. So just to recap here, the Talmud in Gittin brings a discussion about whether the laws of Shemitah in modern times are to be treated as Torah laws or rabbinic laws. Most halachic authorities side with the opinion of Rebbe that the laws are currently rabbinic in nature. Rebbe held that the existence of a Torah-level Shemitah is tied to the existence of Yovel, the Jubilee year, which occurs every 50 years, and we can no longer observe the Jubilee year. Tosfos in 36a and the Rambam in Shemitah and Yovel, Perek Tes Halacha and Beis, so 9:2, based on a Gemara in Erech in 32b, which we saw, state that the reason for this is because one cannot have a Jubilee year without all the Jewish people dwelling in the land of Israel. The Rabbanan decreed that we should continue to observe the laws of Shemitah, but did not institute the laws of Yovel, as they felt it wouldn't be something that Klal Yisrael would be able to stand in. It would be impossible to do. It would be too difficult for the Jewish people to handle, because the Yovel year is a sabbatical year that follows a sabbatical year. The 49th year is a sabbatical year, 7 times 7, that puts you at the 49th year, which is a sabbatical year, and then the 50th year follows it, which would be the Jubilee year and another sabbatical year. Although we do not follow his opinion, it's noteworthy to point out that the Beis HaLevi held that the mitzvahs of Shemitah exist on a Torah level even today, but not based on the laws themselves, based on a verse in Nehemiah in which the Jewish people vowed to keep them. He states that they're obligatory on a Torah level based on the laws of oaths and vows, rather than the laws of Shemitah themselves. It's also important to point out that the Ramah on the above-cited Sif of Shulchan Aruch brings the opinions of the Trumas Hadeshin, the Maharik, and others that the laws of monetary Shemitah do not apply nowadays, and that such a practice existed from the times of the Rush, though he tried to abolish the practice and reinstitute Shemitas Ksafim. However, the Ramah too states that the consensus of the poskim, of the halachic deciders, is in accordance with the ruling of the Shulchan Aruch, that nowadays Shemitas Ksafim, and frankly all Shemitah, would be derabanan, on only a rabbinic level, as opposed to a Torah-based level, which is going to be very important for Shemitas Ksafim, monetary Shemitah, because many hold the only reason that we're able to make a prusable document, which we will discuss at length later, is because Shemitah in our times is derabanan, is rabbinic, because if it was d'oraisa, if it was on a Torah level, we could not make a document that would disable Shemitah from canceling our loans. Let's move on here. Section 4, when are loans canceled? Source number 1, Talmud Bavli, Babylonian Talmud, Erech in 28b, canceled at the conclusion. As we said at the beginning that this would be important, Miketz Sheva Shanim Ta'aseh Shemitah. The pasuk says, at the end of 7 years, you should make a Shemitah release, meaning at the end of 7 years, at the end of the Shemitah year, at the end of that 7th year cycle, the end of the Shemitah year, going into the 8th year. So Rosh Hashanah of the 8th year would be when this kicks in. Malamed, says the Gemara, it teaches us, She'en HaShvius Mishametas Ela B'Sofa, that Shemitah only releases loans at the end of the Shemitah year, i.e. coming up in 2 weeks of this recording. Number 2, Rambam, Mishnah Torah, Shemitah and Yovel, 9.4. Lending during the Shemitah year and the time of the release. Haloves chaver b'shvius. Somebody who lends money to his friend during Shemitah year. Atzma, Shemitah year itself. Gova chovo kol hashana. He can collect the money that's owed to him all year. But as the sun sets on the night of Rosh Hashanah, Shal Motzei Shvius, of the year after Shvius, Avad Hachov. He loses the money that is owed to him. Next source, we're in section 4. Source 3, Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat, Halach Lamaisa. How does this come out on a halachic level? We're in 6730 in the Shulchan Aruch and Choshen Mishpat. Ein Shvius Mishametas K'safim El B'Sofa. Shemitah only cancels loans at the end. L'fichach, therefore, Haloves Chaver B'Shvius. Atzma, someone who loans his friend money in Shvius itself, in the 7th year. Gova Chovo Kol Hashana B'Beis. He can collect all his money throughout the year in Beis Din. Ukshetishka Achama. But when the sun sets, B'Leil Rosh Hashanah, on the night of Rosh Hashanah, Shal Motzei Shvius, of the 7th year going into the 8th year, Avad Achov, the money owed to him would be lost. It's important to note that the Rush is of the opinion that the prohibition of collecting debts applies from the beginning of Shemitah year, beginning with Rosh Hashanah of the 7th year. Although the Shulchan Aruch cited above clearly rejects this opinion, as do most poskim, there are still some poskim, the Shulchan Aruch Harav included, who recommend writing a pruzbul twice, hence the origin of the custom of writing a pruzbul before the Shemitah year, before Rosh Hashanah of Shemitah, and before Rosh Hashanah of the 8th year. But the prevalent custom is to only write one, that being before Rosh Hashanah of the 8th year. Section 5, one who wants to repay. Source 1, Mishnah and Shvius, Perek Yud, Mishnayos Ches and Tes. Please take my money. Hamachzir chov b'Shvius, someone who returns money that was lent to him on Shvius. So the lender is coming back, and this actually means after Shvius, after Shemitah. Shemitah canceled the loan, and now this person wants to come return the money anyways. Yomar lo mishametani. The person who lent him the money should say, no. I canceled the loan with Shemitah. It's over. You don't have to give me the money. Amar lo, if he says to him, Afal Pikain, even so, I want to give you back the money. Yikabel mimenu, so he can accept the money from this person. Shenamar, as it says, V'zeh davar Shemitah, this is the matter of the Shemitah. You release it. But if they decide they want to give it to you even though it's released, hey, great. Master chov b'Shvius, if somebody returns the money that he borrowed after Shemitah cancels the loan, Ruach Chachamim Nocha Heimenu. The Chachamim, the wise people, the sages, are happy with such a person. It brings joy to them to see that someone would give back money even though Shemitah canceled it. So although Shemitah does cancel loans, it's a midas hachasidus, is a righteous thing to give back the money anyways. So how do you give back the money? So we're going to the next source, number 2, the Talmud Bavli, in Gittin 37b. It's a gift. Kishu nosin lo. When the borrower gives back the money to him, al yomar lo b'chovi ani nosin lecha. He should not say, I'm giving you back what I owe you. Ela yomar lo. He should tell him, shalihain, it belongs to me, u'matana ani nosin lech. But I am giving it to you as a gift. Section 6. Which loans and financial agreements are affected by Shemitah? We're going to see the Gemara, and then we're going to talk out in English a bunch of cases. Source 1, Talmud Bavli, Babylonian Talmud, Gittin 37a, the basics. Tanan Hosam, we learned over there in a Mishnah. Hashvius mishametes asamilva, bein b'shtar, bein shelo b'shtar. Shemitah cancels loans, whether they are written up in a document or whether they are not written up in a document. We're going to go with the opinion that comes out l'halacha. Rav Shmuel, the Amrit Havayhu, Rav and Shmuel both say, b'shtar, what does it mean? A loan that's in a document gets canceled by Shemitah? Shtar sheyesh bo achrayas nechasim. This means a document which has a lien on a person's property, meaning Ruvain borrows money from Shimon, and he makes a document that says, if I can't pay back my money, the money that I borrowed, you can collect from my property. That's a shtar sheyesh bo achrayas nechasim. Shelo b'shtar, we said that it cancels a loan that's not in a shtar, that doesn't have a document. She'ein bo achrayus nechasim, that's talking about a document that does not have a lien on a property. Kol shekain, and all the more so, milva al peh, if it's just a verbal agreement, a verbal loan, that certainly would be canceled by Shemittah. Tanan Hasim, we learned over there in our Mishnah. Hamilveh. Tanan Hasim, we learned in a Mishnah. Hamilveh chaver ma'os alamashkan. Somebody who lends his friend money on a collateral. So Ruvain lends Shimon money, and he takes Shimon's watch as a collateral. V'amoser sharos of lebeistin, or someone that gives over his documents, his loan documents, to a beistin, to a court, to be able to collect them on his behalf. So he's not going to collect them from the borrower, the beistin will. Ein mishamtin, such loans would not be canceled by Shemittah. Bishlam amoser sharos of lebeistin. We understand why someone who gives over his documents to beistin, that the loan wouldn't be canceled. The tafsi lahu beidina, because it's beistin which seizes the debtor's property, not you. It's not you pressuring him to give you the money. There's no lo yigos asachicha. There's no problem of not pressuring your friend. You're not pressuring your friend. Beistin is collecting it for you. Now, there are those that say that that is based on a concept called hefker, beistin hefker, that beistin is allowed to do that if they would like. They have emergency powers to do such things. There's also the point that there's an issue of lo yigo, so not pressuring your friend, but that does not apply to beistin. That applies to you directly pressuring your friend to pay you back the loan. So we understand why that works. But milval amashkon, somebody who has a loan on a collateral, my taima, what's the reason that that wouldn't be canceled by Shemittah? So Amar Rabba, actually I think it's Rabba, Amar Rabba, Mishum the toughest way. Because the lender is already in possession of it. He really has already collected this loan. How? Because he has the collateral. You know, if you default on the loan, I keep the collateral. So since the loan is in essence paid up already by the fact that I have the collateral, it would not be canceled by Shemittah. So the above listed laws are the basic halachos brought by the Talmud in Maseches Gittin. The halachos of which loans and debts are canceled by Shemittah are numerous and they're complex. We're not going to be able to touch on all of them, and a halachic authority needs to be contacted about specific cases. In addition, a pruzbul, which we're going to explain, should be made for anyone who has outstanding debts to collect from Jews before this coming Rosh Hashanah, 5776. And my Rabbanim always told me that it's a good idea for everyone to make a pruzbul, just in case you don't want to forget that you had outstanding loans and then remember after Rosh Hashanah when they are canceled. Due to the complexity of these halachos, I'm going to present some practical modern applications in English, and these are based on two sources. First, Hold That Loan, The Laws of Shemitas, Kesapim, and Pruzbul by Rabbi Moshe Donabaum, and the Guidelines to Shemittah by Rabbis Elazar Barclay and Yitzchak Yeager of Neve Yaakov, where I used to live once upon a time. So types of debts affected by Shemittah. A. The laws of Shemitas Kesapim apply not only to monetary loans, but include any borrowing of consumables, example, household items such as paper, and food items such as flour and eggs, where the item itself will not be returned, but will be replaced by another similar one. This is based on an idea called milva lehotza nitna, that when a person lends out money, they expect that money to be used and then other monies to be returned to them. You don't expect them to take the money, come back 2 weeks later and give you the same $50 bill. They're going to use it because they need it and they're going to give you back other money. The same is true of items like milk or eggs. You know, your neighbor from the apartment next door knocks on your door and says they need some eggs for their cake. You give them some eggs. You're not expecting them to bring those eggs back. They're going to bring back some other eggs to replace them. So that is similar to a loan and would count as a loan. So therefore, if one borrows food from a neighbor shortly before the end of Shemittah, he's not required to return it after Shemittah. I borrow it from you the day before the day before Rosh Hashanah of this coming year, and then I don't give it back to you until after Rosh Hashanah. So I don't need to give it back to you now. It was canceled by Shemittah, unless the lender made a pruzbul. Nevertheless, it's praiseworthy to return such items, And if the same item that is borrowed is returned, like someone borrows a power tool or a book or something like that, this law does not apply because it's not similar to the idea of milva lahotza nitna, that you give something out and do not get the same thing in return. In this case, you give out your book and you expect to get the exact same copy of that book back. So such a thing would not be canceled by Shemittah, and you can bang down your neighbor's door to get your book back, and he can't say anything about it. Let's move on to source B here. With regard to credit offered for purchases or services rendered, example at a supermarket or a bakery, if the storekeeper or company fixed a date by which the debt must be paid, and that date is during the Shemitah year, the money would be considered like a loan and canceled by Shemitah. If the owner charges his customers' accounts, it is not affected by the passing of the Shemitah year. So at a store where you have a tab at this store, if he makes a date by which you have to pay him, and that date passes and you can't pay him, and then Rosh Hashanah passes, so then that would be canceled. He would need a prusbul to make sure such a thing would not get canceled. However, if it's more of a loose agreement that you pay when you can pay, and he doesn't come pressuring you, that would not be canceled by Shemitah. And let's move on to C here. Unlike a store, an individual who sells on credit usually expects to be paid immediately. Therefore, if the individual grants credit, it's considered a loan, which is canceled by Shemitah. So if an individual gives credit to someone, they expect it to be paid back right away. So that would be canceled by Shemittah. You would need a prusbul for such a thing. D, Shemittah does not affect a loan that becomes due only after Shemittah. This is based on the verse, he shall not demand it of his friend, which implies that the creditor could otherwise have demanded payment. In this case, it's not due for a long time, so I'm not pressuring you to pay me back. Therefore, there's not a problem of Shemitah canceling it. Similarly, payments for accounts are not due until billed. Only once a considerable amount is accumulated, or on a monthly basis, does a creditor total the amount owing, and then the obligation is formally established as a debt. But before that, it wouldn't be established as a debt. So if he didn't establish a formal debt for you before Rosh Hashanah, it only happened after Rosh Hashanah, so then he wasn't pressuring you to pay him before Shemitah canceled loans. So that loan would not be canceled, or that debt, rather, would not be canceled by Shemitah. Important to note that we've been using the word loan a lot, but as we see in the last few paragraphs, there are other debts that certainly count as a loan, and it makes a lot of sense to make a prusbul to cover yourself. Let's move on to E. Shemitah does not affect the business partnerships. Even if one partner is holding all the funds, it's not considered as if one partner is lending the other. Moving on to F, Shemittah has the power to cancel the obligation of a borrower to reimburse a guarantor who paid back a loan on their behalf. So the example is, Reuven borrowed money from Shimon and realized that he might not be able to pay him back, so he brought in Levi to be a guarantor for it. And then he defaulted on the loan, and Levi paid it on his behalf, so now he owes Levi, and Rosh Hashanah happens, it cancels the loan. It cancels the need to pay back Levi. Moving on to G. The prohibition to collect debts does not apply until the last moment of the Shemitah year is passed and Rosh Hashanah of the following year begun. Any loan that was repaid before Rosh Hashanah is evidently not canceled by Shemitah. However, if payment was made by check and funds have not yet cleared to the account of the creditor before Rosh Hashanah, it's possible that the loan may not be considered paid since the money didn't transfer into the new account, even when there are sufficient funds in the debtor's account. Consequently, the loan will be canceled at the last moment of Shemitah. So this can vary from country to country depending on what a check represents. But in the United States of America, until the money shows up in the creditor's account, it's not there yet. So if you paid a person back right before Rosh Hashanah, but the money did not land in his account until after Rosh Hashanah, that really, you were just paid a loan that should have been canceled. You either need to refund him the money, or he can give it to you as a gift, or of course, you can make a prusbul. So this is the next letter here, letter H. Loans owed to a person who made a pruzbul are not canceled by Shemittah. We will now explore the laws of pruzbul. Section 7, pruzbul, the enactment of Hillel. We're going to look at a Gemara in the Babylonian Talmud, Talmud Bavli, and Gittin 37b. What is a pruzbul? Tanan Hasam. We learned over there in a Mishnah, pruzbul and a mishamet. A pruzbul, if someone makes a pruzbul, their loans are not canceled. This is one of the regulations made by Hillel the elder, Shara Esa'am. They saw the Jewish people, Shenimnu Melahalvos, they were holding back from lending each other. They're therefore transgressing what's written in the Torah, in Devarim Tesvav Tes, Hishamar Lecha. You should be careful, Penya Devarim Levavcha B'Liyah, unless you have a wayward thought in your heart to think, the seventh year is coming, and I don't want to lend my friend because I'm going to lose my money. So Hillel saw that many people in the Jewish people were doing this and transgressing, not giving out loans to needy people because they thought they were going to lose their money, and the needy people were in dire straits, and the rich people were transgressing. Amad v'hiskin pruzbul, so he stood up and he established the pruzbul document. V'zehu gufa shel pruzbul, and this is the body of what a pruzbul document is, and what a pruzbul statement is. Mosarni lachem ploni dayanim, I give over to you such and such judges, shevmakom ploni, in such and such a city, shekolcho sheyesh li etzel ploni, that any money that is owed to me by such and such a person, shagvenu kol zman she'ertza, I should be able to collect it any time that I want, based on your power as dayanim, as a beis din, meaning I am asking for permission to collect it myself, but that's based on the power of beis din. V'adayanim chosmin lamata o'aedim, and the judges or the witnesses, which we are going to speak out as well, sign underneath that statement, to the effect of that statement. We have a bit of an issue here. The Torah says that Shemittah should cancel loans. So how could it be that Hillel could institute a document that would keep Shemittah from canceling the loan and let a creditor collect the money owed to him? So Amar Abaye answered, like we touched on earlier, the Shvius Bizman Hazeh. This is talking about Shemittah in our time, Shehu Min Rabbanan, which is only rabbinic in nature. Moving on to source 2, Sefer Dini Shvius HaShalem, explaining the Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud in Gittin 37b, on the source of the word pruzbul. Pruzbul hi mila mikutzeres. Pruzbul is an abbreviated word, mi pruzbuli buti, from the word pruzbuli buti. Umerkeves mi gimel tevos, which is made up of 3 words: pruz, a takana, a fix; buli, for the rich; buti, and the poor. Klomar, that means to say, shatakana haisa letovas aniyim, that this fix helped the poor people, shiimsu mishilav lahem, because they found someone to lend to them. The takana lashir, it also helps the rich people, shelo yafsidu es mamonam, that they shouldn't lose their money, al yidei hashmatas halava, through the loan being canceled, b'shvius, by Shemittah. Moving on to the next source, Sefer Dini Shvius Shalem in chapter 30, supplemented with my own notes, the essential laws of pruzbul. I'm going to speak this out without really breaking up in between. I'm just going to rattle off the essential laws of pruzbul here. It's in source 3, but I'm going to read them more in a seamless style here. The essence of Hillel's enactment is that the sages extended the law of handing one's loans over to beis din. Firstly, that making beis din aware of monies owed and asking for permission to personally collect is tantamount to giving them to beis din to collect. It's the same as Moser Sharos of the beis din, giving over your loan documents to beis din. The sages also added with this enactment that a pruzbul helps even on verbal loans, which cannot generally be transferred to a beis din. A lender who does not want his loans to be canceled by Shemittah should make a pruzbul as long as it's still permitted to collect the loan, i.e. until Rosh Hashanah of the 8th year. The minhag is to make a pruzbul during Elul of the Shemitah year. It is best for everyone to make a pruzbul, even if they cannot remember any outstanding loans, if they don't want their loans to be canceled. The pruzbul hands over one's loans to beis din, and according to the Beis Yosef, the beis din has to be well versed in the laws. The Ramah holds, however, that any beis din of 3 will do as long as they are kosher and b'nei Torah. Even those who require a well-versed beis din are lenient to not require the pruzbul be written in their presence. Rather, one says before the witnesses that they transfer the loan to the Beis Din, and the witnesses sign to that effect. The judges themselves, the Beis Din themselves, do not even need to know of the transference. A principal can only be written if the borrower is a landowner, for then the loan can be looked at as collected, and when the loan is transferred to a Beis Din, it is as if they have taken ownership of that property. Some say this is needed because the sages only made enactments for normal circumstances, and it would be abnormal to lend to a person who did not own land. If the borrower has no land, the lender may offer him of his own, and it can be written into the principal that the lender gives the borrower 4 amos of his property. There are those who do not require this, as everyone has at least 4 amos of borrowed or rented property, even a yeshiva student, a yeshiva bacher, and such borrowed or rented property suffices. There are those who are careful, the Shulchan Aruch Harav among them, to make an additional principle before Rosh Hashanah of the 7th year, as some Rishonim, the Rosh among them, prohibit collecting loans after Shemittah begins. If one forgets to write a principle and remembers Erev Rosh Hashanah at a time when he cannot write, if he is familiar with making a principle, he may make a verbal declaration before 3 judges or 2 witnesses. And there are those who write a principle and then subsequently lend out a small sum of money before Rosh Hashanah in order to have Shemitah cancel the loan so they can fulfill the mitzvah of every creditor should release what is owed to him, shamot kol baal ma'aseh yado. So, just going over the wording of the principle, this is the last thing we're going to do today. There's a great principle from Guidelines to Shemitah by Rabbis Barclay and Yeager that is usable. There's also one circulating from the Beth Din of America, which is being sent out by the OU as well. That is the one we are using here in Portland. The wording of the principle, I'm going to speak it out in English. If you make a principle in front of judges, dayanim, the lender should say before the 3 men the following: I transfer to you, the judges, all the debts owed to me, both written and oral, so that I can collect them whenever I wish. And then the judges would write, we 3 sitting here together, and the name of the person who's transferring the loans, came before us and said, I transfer to you, the judges, all debts owed to me, both written and oral, so that I can collect them whenever I wish. And since that person made the declaration of principle as stated by the sages, we have written and signed on this day, and then you write the date, this document of principle as practiced from the time of Hillel the Elder and instituted by the sages, and then it is signed by the judges. If you have the second type of principle, which can be made in front of 2 men acting as witnesses that you are transferring the money to the power of Beis Din, or that you are really going to be able to collect them on your own based on the koach, the power of Beis Din. So you don't need to actually tell the Beis Din about it even, but the witnesses have to sign to the effect that you are transferring it to the Beis Din. So you would say, I transfer to the Beis Din in the city of such and such, whose names are such and such. You'd have to list them. All debts owed to me, both written and oral, so that I can collect them whenever I wish. And the witnesses would write, we, the undersigned, certify that such and such came before us and said, I transfer to the Beis Din in the city of such and such, whose names are such and such. All debts owed to me, both written and oral, so that I can collect them whenever I wish. And since such and such made the declaration of principle as stated by the sages, we have written and signed on this day, and you'd list the day, this document of principle as practiced from the time of Hillel the Elder and instituted by the sages, and the witnesses would sign. So that is the document that is recommended by my Rabbanim that everyone should make, so that they do not have their loans canceled by Shemittah. Even if you don't think you have any loans out there, it's worth it to do. I hope this was educational. It was a fun class to put together. I got to look at a lot of halachic material. I want to wish everyone out there a kasiva v'chasima tova, a good gebencht year filled with bracha and atzlacha on everything you do, and we should be zocha to greet the righteous Mashiach this year. B'mehera b'yameinu. Bye-bye.